All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight and making the time to attend our webinar. I think it's going to be a really cool one. We had some exciting news and information to share. So we're going to talk tonight about how to use your summer to prepare for next season. And I know it seems a little odd as many of you are getting ready for state or regional tournaments, but there's a couple of cool opportunities here that happen in the next few weeks we wanted to make you aware of and wanted to give you guys the opportunity to interact with. All right, I'm Dr. John Lohr. If you haven't seen me in a webinar with Science Olympiad, also on here tonight that I'll be turning over to shortly is Oliver Yang for the Cambridge Center for International Research, one of our fantastic partners here that we get to work with at Science Olympiad. Just a couple of housekeeping things. The session tonight is being recorded. You'll get the link later this week. We'll get it up in the cloud. It should be available tomorrow. And then later we will move it over to our YouTube channel, Science Olympiad TV, so you can find it there as well. When it comes to the session tonight, I would ask that if you have questions you want to ask either myself or Oliver, you put those things in the Q&A so that they get recorded and we'll be able to either type an answer in for you or we'll talk about it live during the presentation. Should something happen or you got a question about hey, is my sound not working? Did the screen freeze? Any of those kind of things, please feel free to go ahead and let us know about that in the chat. So Oliver and I will get to see the chat throughout the session. Also, should at any point in time, either myself or Oliver ask you guys a question like, hey, like I'm going to do right now, would you guys put in the chat whether you're a student or a coach and what state you're typing in from? All right, that would be great. So if you put that in the chat for us, or, we may ask you some other questions like that throughout the rest of the session and try and make it a little more interactive. Now, in terms of objectives, here's what I was hoping to shoot for tonight is one, I want to talk about the summer learning opportunities that Science Olympiad offers. And these are largely for the adults. So these are going to be for coaches and parents. And we have two of them that I'll get into some details on. But then I'm going to turn over to Oliver because the Cambridge Center for International Research has some really great student programming. And he's got some really cool things to share with you, both about student scholarships and coaching grants. And then at the end of the session, we will take questions. But like I said, feel free to throw them in as we go, because we'll try and follow along. Now, in terms of Science Olympiad, for coaches, once again this summer, we're going to be offering two programs, right? The first program, and probably the program that can have the highest level of attendance, is our virtual boot camp. And what virtual boot camp is, it's a mix of videos and online learning sessions that take place in July, right? In particular, the live sessions for boot camp are going to take place Tuesday, July 8th, Wednesday, July 9th, and Thursday, July 10th. We've made a slight change to the format. We've condensed it to 3 days, but we're going to go longer each day. So we're not losing any content. It's just kind of making it easier on everybody's schedule. Cool thing about all the live sessions, right? Everything's recorded. So if you can't make a session or you can't make a day, you can watch the videos after. You get early access to the 2026 rules. All right. We got 12 hours of live instruction. You also get a bunch of content, instructional and coaching resources, talked about kind of on your own timeline. And we've built in some stuff to virtually connect with other Science Olympiad coaches. The fee for that program is $450. The other program we offer, right, is an in-person build clinic. And for this one, you got to come to Naperville, Illinois, not too far from the Science Olympiad headquarters, right? And that will take place all day Wednesday, July 16th, all day Thursday, July 17th, and half a day on Friday, July 18th. Now, cool thing about boot camp or build clinic is everything I talk about in boot camp, the pre-recorded videos, the instructional and coaching resources, the live sessions, you get access to all of that. Where what build clinic is, it's an add-on of 16 hours of hands-on activity, right? Where I'm gonna bring in my top national event supervisors, and you guys are actually gonna get to build a boom lever. We're going to work on hovercraft. We got electric vehicle. We're going to talk about Mission Possible. We're going to do work around engineering CAD. And we're also going to tackle some stuff with Scrambler, right? So it's really going to be hands-on. For this, we'll do breakfast and lunch while you're with us at the learning activities. You guys get to pick your own hotel. The cool thing about our location in Naperville is pretty much any hotel chain you want is near the conference center that we use. So if you're a Marriott person, there's a nice Marriott. If you're a Hilton person, there's a couple of different Hilton options. There's Hyatt. There's even Holiday Inn and IHG hotels there as well. All right, and the cost for that is $975. Now, real quick, just kind of wanted to show, and you guys will all get, we'll make sure the slides are up so you can see this. If you go to the Science Olympiad website, soinc.org/join/workshops, under summer workshops, the draft schedule for the boot camp is already up, and you can download a copy. Essentially what it is, we're going to start 9:30 in the morning with what opportunity to talk and network and meet other coaches, meet Science Olympiad folks. Then each day from 10 to 10:30, we're going to have a BC event that is coming in. So it's looking right now like we're planning to do hovercraft, circuit lab, and boom lever, right? Then we're going to run a couple of concurrent sessions. So you're going to have a choice of going to, on Monday, Codebusters, entomology, or experimental design. Right? Then we're going to do a solo session again. So everybody, a new event for both divisions. So we'll talk about water quality, rocks and minerals, machines. Come back with concurrent sessions for a half hour. One more half hour of concurrent sessions. And then we end the day with breakout sessions where you can sit down and talk to the presenters about an event in a less structured, less presentation-like format. So you can get feedback about things you do. You can talk to other coaches. So again, it's just a less structured environment. Now, Build Clinic, we kind of talked about the big picture. We go about 8 to 5:30 every day is when we break. What'll happen is in the morning, Division B will tackle one event. So right now it's looking like on Wednesday, B is going to do hovercraft while Division C is working on helicopters. Go to lunch, and we flip. Division B goes to helicopters. Division C goes and works on hovercraft until the end of the day. You guys do dinner on your own. And we usually pick a place in the area to say if people want to meet up and hang out and talk afterwards. Thursday, we come back and repeat it. We're going to start with boom lever for Division B, electric vehicle for Division C. In the afternoon, Division C is going to go into boom lever, and Division B will do scrambler. We break for dinner. We have a spot where everyone's hanging out if you want to come and do that. And then Friday, we're going to wrap up with Division B will work on Mission Possible. Division C will work on engineering CAD. And if you want to break your booms, you want to try flying your helicopters some more, you want to run your hovercrafts or your electric vehicles or scramblers, all that kind of stuff can be done on Friday as well. And everybody's out of there by about 11 o'clock. All right. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Oliver and let him take it from there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. Let me get the screen share going. Perfect. Okay, so thank you everyone for attending this webinar and joining us this evening. Thank you, John, for inviting us. Really excited to sort of move things forward here. My name is Oliver. I am the Director of Outreach and Communications here at CCIR. And today what we're really going to be talking about is we've made a little deck, a little presentation for you guys, mostly talking about the sort of opportunities to do research at the high school level. So just to begin, let me speak a little bit about the agenda. So the big theme here tonight is sort of the sorts of opportunities that are available for both the coaches in the audience as well as the students for enrichment over the summer. So we're definitely going to get into a little bit about our own programming here at CCIR. But we'll also be talking a little bit about CCIR's partnership with Science Olympiad and the sorts of opportunities that are going to be available for teams as well as coaches. So we're going to start there, talk about CCIR and Science Olympiad. We'll then dive into sort of what we do here at CCIR Academy, what sorts of opportunities are available for you and you or your students. And then we'll also talk a little bit about our essay competition. Towards the very end, we can sort of do a quick Q&A. But with that, let's get started. So just a little bit of background about who we are here at CCIR. So CCIR was founded roughly 5 years ago by a group of Cambridge graduates with sort of an overarching ambition of connecting academia and the wider public. So within this general mission, we do quite a lot of work. We have ongoing podcast series. We have a public lecture initiative. Feel free to ask me more about this as well. This is very relevant to you guys. This is an initiative we also work with the Science Olympiad on, but we bring our faculty to your schools to deliver virtual talks on everything from biomimetic engineering to quantum computing to the history of feminism in East Asia. So we have a really, really robust network of academics, and this is something that we do nonprofit sort of for high schools if they're interested and can show that there'll be sort of a good audience for this initiative. So we have ongoing outreach programs, including the podcast, the lecture initiative, this recent essay competition that I'll talk a little bit more about. We also do offer sort of higher level opportunities for academics. So something we do is called the CCIR Fellowship. This is only going to be available for graduate students and PhD students, but this is sort of another sort of public outreach fellowship that we give people to publicize their work with. The core of what we do at CCIR, however, is sort of concentrated in these two programs that we offer, the Future Scholar and the One-on-One. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, but what we do there is we provide gifted students with opportunities to conduct high-level independent research online with leading academics and experts. So since 2024, CCIR has been the Science Olympiad's exclusive preferred student research partner. Part of the mission here is, again, to support coaches and students to foster passion for science and research. I'll very briefly talk about some of these, some of the initiatives that we're currently working on. In the Q&A, feel free to ask us some more questions about how these grants work and what they go towards and so on. But very broadly, this year, we have roughly 4 basic initiatives. One is what we call the Science Olympiad Coaching Workshop Grants. So this is the virtual bootcamp that John mentioned earlier. So here what we're going to do is offer 10 $450 grants, which is going to cover all of the registration fees for the virtual bootcamp, to high school Division C Science Olympiad coaches. This is going to cover your registration costs as well as some other overheads. And this is going to be an opportunity. We're going to release it very soon in sort of late February, early March, with a April 2025 application deadline. So Keep an eye out for that in your emails. Make sure that you're subscribed to the newsletter if you're interested in the coaching workshop grants. This is the team resource grant is something that we offered last year as well. This is a $500 grant that we're offering to 10 high school Division C Science Olympiad teams. This is going to be able to go towards things like material purchases, professional development for coaches, travel, tournament fees, and so on. This is going to, like last year, be an opportunity that we'll announce in August 2025 with a September 2025 application deadline. So once again, if you want to keep track of that, be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. Also subscribe to the CCIR newsletter, go to our website, check it out. We'll also be talking about this as we go along. Finally, what we're going to do, and this is also something we did last year, it worked really, really well just because Science Olympiad students are such a good fit for our programs. But what we offer is Science Olympiad, CCIR Science Olympiad scholarships. So what we're going to do here is offer 30 students from selected Division C Science Olympiad teams with merit-based scholarships worth upwards of $300 for CCIR registration. Finally, for the STEM Expo in May, we're going to bring one of our faculty. We're going to do one of the public lectures for the STEM Expo here. But again, if you're interested in the public lecture opportunities, feel free to ask me more about that in the Q&A. We're able to bring our faculty to speak to your students. So I'm going to take a half step back here and talk a little bit about research within the high school context. So I imagine some of you guys are probably already working with students developing research projects. Probably you have research components built into your existing courses in physics, biology, whatever, what have you. But what we're seeing across the board, especially sort of at the, let's say, more competitive or the sort of more, let's just say the more competitive echelons of high school activities, an increasing sort of interest and role of performing high-level independent scientific research. This we see for a number of background reasons as well, but what we have found is that doing research at the high school level can be extremely, extremely valuable for a student's intellectual and academic development. I can speak for myself here. As a high school student back in the day, I wasn't particularly interested in school, let's just say. But it really wasn't until I went to college, I sort of discovered that, there was sort of that school could be cool, that there were sort of deeper insights and deeper forms of knowledge that were embedded in things like biomimetic engineering that I had simply never heard of before. So one of the things that you see when you introduce younger students to sort of deeper topics in research in academia is that it really ends up driving the process of autonomous learning, intellectual discovery, as well as self-discovery, right? So one of the things we see with these students is that there's a real shift as they experience the difference between, let's say, real science, sort of doing sort of ongoing research work, understanding scientific practice versus simply doing their sort of traditional, let's say, AP biology courses, right? Digestion and regurgitation of information. Research is a very, very different process. There's this sort of discovery component that's built into the learning. And what we find is that students become much more motivated to learn once they realize that actually learning can take this different form. What we also see at the high school level is the value of mentorship and how that ends up shaping a student through research. So especially at the high school level, research is something that requires mentorship. All right, you need someone to tell you sort of what the state of the art of research currently is, how to do things, how to cite things properly, proper methods, and so on and so forth. That's not something that a high school student will be able to really do on their own. And this relationship with the mentor is, as in our experience, a potentially transformative one for the student. These are kids who are really sort of just exploring these spaces and seeing someone who is a current practicing neuroscientist, who is a topological physicist, or who is an applied mathematician, doing sort of work at the highest level can be extremely inspirational for these students. And finally, there is, as I mentioned earlier, robust synergy between sort of doing high school research and the work that you guys are doing here at the Science Olympiad. On the one hand, the Science Olympiad is going to be a way of discovering research interests, right? So through participating in Science Olympiad events, you discover sort of what your curiosities are. But on the other side, sort of pursuing academic in-depth research is going to be a way of bolstering and strengthening your Science Olympiad work as well. In the background of all of this, so the recent developments towards high school research did not occur in a vacuum. This has very much been driven in the background by recent changes in US undergraduate, in the sort of landscape of US undergraduate admissions. So one thing that we see is that one of the key drivers towards these trends in research is sort of the need to profile build among students. And as educators, obviously, we want to be focusing on the sort of intrinsic value of what we're sort of imparting to the students here. But at the same time, we do also have to be mindful that the students really do care about getting into college. And this is one of the key drivers of this trend in research. So one thing we see here is that over the past 10, 15 years, there's been two things that happen. One is widespread inflation of the GPA, and the other is inflation and a decrease in importance of standardized testing. So more and more schools are giving out 3.9s, more and more students are getting SAT boot camps and getting 1500s. Top schools are now going test optional. What that means is that for the sort of emerging group of students, there's a question for them, which is beyond my GPA, beyond my SAT, what other ways can I showcase my intellectual and academic excellence? So within this context, getting a letter of reference from a researcher, from an academic, doing something like research and publication is going to be extremely valuable in distinguishing the student sort of intellectually and academically in this highly, highly competitive undergraduate admissions landscape. So these are statistics we also see on the college side. So according to UPenn, 30% of its 2026 class of freshmen engaged in some form of high school research. We look across the board, Harvard, MIT, UPenn, Yale, Columbia, they now all have dedicated guides for student researchers on how to submit their work. So all of these things are coming together. One of the questions for us is how can we support our students in these in this emerging landscape? How can we support our students in doing scientific research? So one of the things we're going to talk about today, obviously, is going to be our programs. So sort of knowing what sorts of programs are out there is going to be really valuable for coaches as well as teachers, as well as students. So doing your research, understanding their paid programs, advantages and disadvantages between the two. Unpaid programs, you might have heard of RSI, MIT Primes. These are sort of highly, highly competitive unpaid programs that are currently being run by certain universities. They're going to be actually very, very similar to the paid programs, with the main distinction that the unpaid programs are going to be insanely, insanely competitive. What you'll see with CCIR is that even among the paid programs, I mean, think about the fact that, in fact, most universities are paid programs these days, private universities, and they remain highly competitive. For better or for worse, the paid programs, even sort of within the research realm, high school research realm, has now become pretty darn competitive. At CCIR, we currently maintain roughly a 20% admissions rate. Part of the difficulty here is that our programs are super duper intense, and that requires a particular level of student in order to make sure that they're able to handle these programs. So one of the things that you should be sort of looking out for is sort of understanding the programming that exists out there today, the sorts of options that you're able to help your student who is sort of doing really excellent work in your classes, in your teams, and you can say, look, I think you're a really promising student. I think you can explore high school research. Here are some options for you. Another thing that we are able to do for our students is help them in the process of cold emailing RA positions. At your local university, your local community colleges, there will be plenty of research assistant positions that are currently potentially available for high school students. Helping your students craft that email. Students are going to be nervous, scared, and so on with writing an email to your local professor asking about a lab internship. Helping them through that process is going to be really, really valuable. Obviously, this is a labor-intensive process, right, for the student as well as also for the teacher. But if you're looking for sort of free opportunities within your local context, doing these cold emailing, cold calling trainings with your student can be really, really valuable for them. Finally, among your students, I'm sure there are students who are sort of doing interesting research work, writing cool projects, doing cool projects on their own. Guiding them through the process of scientific communication work, encouraging scientific communication, sort of understanding what sorts of conferences are available, competitions that your students can submit their work to. That's all going to be really, really helpful, both from a practical perspective and an intellectual development perspective for your students. One thing we see here at CCIR is that our students who go on to attend conferences, workshops, competitions are not only able to weave sort of richer stories from an admissions perspective, they genuinely experience deep intellectual growth. Being able to go to a conference at MIT, see what other researchers are doing, for a 17-year-old kid can be a life-changing experience. Right, just seeing sort of people doing crazy robotic stuff, seeing people do crazy entomology stuff, that's part of what makes the Science Olympiad stuff so inspirational as well. Sort of simply having these interactions, meeting these people, these encounters can be a transformative experience for our students. So with that as a background, I'm going to talk a little bit now about what we do here at CCIR and why a program like ours can be really, really beneficial for students and for your students as well. What we're trying to do here at CCIR is construct these highly articulated, highly scaffolded programs that are going to help support our students in experiencing research for the first time and in engaging in scientific communication for the first. So what we're offering here at CCIR are these highly selective, intensive online research mentorship programs being designed and taught by some of the best faculty in the world. What we have is a program with competitive admissions, rigorous academics, and a robust scaffolding and support system for our students. When we say that we're working with some of the best faculty in the world, we mean that our faculty in the UK are coming from Oxford, Cambridge, and to a lesser extent from LSE and UCL. In the US, we're talking about familiar household name schools in the top 20, MIT, Harvard, Brown, Stanford, Columbia, Yale, Princeton, Berkeley, and so on. Our faculty are all going to be current teaching faculty members. We do have PhD students as well as our TAs. These are leading researchers, passionate educators, sort of people who are pioneers and pioneers in their field, who want to do more public outreach work, engaging with younger students. At CCIR, we're also providing our students with robust publication support. So once you go through our program, we have sort of PhD students and graduate students on our team, guiding the students, telling them sort of what sorts of venues are going to be legitimate, feasible for them. If you go to our website, you can go check out our student spotlight series. There, our students are talking about the work that they're able to do here at CCIR, where they end up publishing. We're sort of putting up one or two of these every single week. Our students do exceptionally well at sort of showcasing their work. Our high school students are are presenting their work at the IEEE, what a terrible name, the IEEE at MIT. This is an undergraduate research technology conference. Y'all might be familiar with this, the Sigma Psi at Cornell. We have students presenting at graduate level conferences at the Microbiology Society in the UK, publishing at the Dartmouth Undergraduate Journal of Science. They're able to achieve this through the support of our faculty and through the support of our team. So we do a lot of work here for our students in making sure that we're providing this sort of rich intellectual and academic environment. One of the things that we do here is we run something that we call the CCIR Student Symposium every single year. This is going to be a opportunity, this sort of conferencing opportunity that's only going to be available for current and past CCIR students. But this year, actually, we are inviting the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1989, Dr. Thomas Cech. Thomas is wonderful. He's a distinguished professor at the Department of Biochemistry at the University of Colorado. He's going to actually join us in person at King's College at the University of Cambridge. The symposium itself is a hybrid event. Students are able to show up in person, however, and if you get to attend in person, I will personally be there. But you'll actually be able to interact with Thomas. You'll be able to have dinner. We have a high table dinner reception in the hall at King's College. It's this wonderful space. It feels like Harry Potter. It's really, really cool. I encourage you, if you're able to attend, it's a really, really special opportunity, and you literally get to meet a Nobel laureate. Last year, we had Dr. Harvey J. Alter there, Dr. David Baltimore as well. It's just a really, really beautiful opportunity to meet like-minded student researchers and interact with world-class researchers and Nobel laureates. So CCIR, we also actually have recently developed an in-person lab program. So starting spring 2025, current and future CCIR students from both of our programs will actually be able to join us in person at the state-of-the-art CCIR Lab on the campus of MIT. We're working with Lab Central here. This is a professional biosafety level 2 facility where students are able to carry out pretty advanced projects. This is going to be available for our students at no additional cost. We have a couple of windows currently for lab access. We'll have people on the ground guiding our students in doing this sort of work. It's a really robust facility. You do have to go through an application process, even if you're in the program, to just get safety approval and all of that. But another extremely, extremely cool opportunity that we've availed for our students. So fun fact, the lab building that we are currently working with is the birthplace of the Polaroid, and where the first long distance phone call was held between Watson and Bell. I'll keep the rest of the presentation reasonably short. I'll sort of keep it a little bit compressed, but I just want to give you guys a sense of what the structure of our programs are like and the way we help our students develop. And this is also going to be useful for the teachers and coaches in the audience, thinking about how they might guide their own students through a research project. So our flagship program here at CCIR is the Cambridge Future Scholar Program. This is our small group intensive online research mentorship program that's being designed and taught by our wonderful faculty. Each of these courses is going to be composed of a small cohort of 5 students in conjunction with 1 faculty and 1 TA. The program itself is going to extend over 13 weeks, and you're going to be focused on 1 out of our 112 different research courses. So we're offering here everything from molecular epidemiology to the neuropsychology of emotions, to differential geometry of curves and surfaces, to quantum computation, to synthetic biology, to nanomaterials, to spacecraft engineering. The goal here is to offer cool and exciting classes for our students. Regardless of what you're working in, however, the basic structure of these programs is exactly the same. You have 13 weeks where the first 6 to 7 weeks will be focused on building your foundations. You'll be getting, let's say you're taking Dr. Saha's course in deep learning for computer vision and image analysis. You'll be getting lectures from Dr. Saha on these topics. Your TA will be guiding you through coding training, building up your foundational research skills, such that by week 6 or 7, all of our students are doing project proposals. The latter half of the program is going to be increasingly workshop and practical oriented. The goal here is to help you develop your actual projects. By the end of the 13 weeks, the goal here is to get each and every one of our students to have developed a rough draft of a project. But the basic idea here, the sort of takeaway for you guys who maybe are not thinking about the program itself, but thinking about how I might help scaffold my students into doing a research project, is that you have to build in a period of exploration for high school students. Most of our high school students coming in are reading scientific papers for the first time. They are exploring research methodology for the first time. They're hearing about cognitive neuroscience of learning for the first time. They're hearing for the first time about mathematical logic. The idea here is that you have to give your students a sufficient period of exploration in the first 6 to 7 weeks of study, where they're reading papers, seeing what the shape of the field is, so that they can understand what is relevant, interesting, and feasible for them within this field today. Right? So they're not going to be able to come in and solve all the problems of sustainable aerospace engineering. But by exploring things, by sort of gaining a deeper understanding, seeing sort of all the different things that are happening in this field, they're able to identify more precise interests. With that, with a sense of the field, and then with a sense of what they're interested in the field, that's how you're going to be able to propel them forward through workshops, through specific guidance, through independent mentorship, towards developing a project. Obviously, when we're doing it, we have a bit more sort of structure. Our faculty are sort of really dedicated to this. We have additional TA support as well. But the basic idea here is implementable for you guys without applying to our courses as well. So we have 112 different courses. I'm not going to go through all of this. I'll quickly mention here, I'll keep this brief. This is not sort of a total info session for our programs, but very briefly, we are going to have a spring program as well as a summer program. The spring program will have a deadline of March 1st and March 15th for early and regular, respectively. You are already able to apply for the summer. The summer program has a deadline of, I think, May 15th. The program itself is 13 weeks. For the spring program, it'll run through about April to mid-July. So it's actually kind of an early summer program. And the summer program will start through June all the way to roughly September. I won't dwell too much on the application process right now. There's an application process, an interview. Our decisions are always made by the faculty themselves. If you're interested in more of the admissions details, I'll save that to the Q&A. I'll quickly say something about our one-on-one research mentorship program as well here. So here we're again running a project-focused and research-based program. The difference here is that you tell us what you're interested in, we'll find a mentor for you, and we'll design an independent, customized research program just for you. So beyond the 112 different faculty that we work with at the Future Scholar Program, we have a network of roughly at this point 400 faculty in everything from Spanish medieval history to topological physics. This means that we're pretty much able to cater to any student research under the sun. Not quite. Once in a while, we'll find a student who's interested in something that we can't offer. They'll be interested in, I don't know, like an African drumming or something like that, and then we have like one ethnomusicologist or something like that. But typically for most research interests, we're able to accommodate that. And here what we're offering is a program that's going to be customizable, both in terms of its content and its structure. So instead of offering 112 courses you pick from, here we offer you an opportunity to tell us what you're interested in, and we'll match a faculty to you. The program itself is 14 one-hour sessions that can be flexibly scheduled and structured according to your needs. We have a rolling program throughout the year, so you can apply for it, start it whenever you want. This is what we mean when we say that this program really allows our students to study what they want in the way that they want. So again, I won't dwell here on the admissions. The key thing here to take away is that we go through a matching process for our students. You send your application to us, we'll circulate that application with our faculty, we'll send our faculty profile to you. It's a matchmaking process. And you actually get to meet your faculty before finally confirming your program. The whole goal here is to make sure that our faculty are able to identify brilliant students. Our students are able to find great mentors that fit their interest as well. With that, I'll quickly actually mention it seems like the slide wasn't put in here, but we also have an essay competition. The essay competition is a free opportunity that we offer. The deadline, I believe, is in May 15th. There's additional cash prizes, scholarship awards. A lot of the essays, the essay topics there are going to be public science and sort of ethics of technology questions. So that might very much be up the alley of your students. I'm gonna send the link to the essay competition in the group chat in just a second. But with all of that, I'm gonna direct your attention to my email at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, as well as our Instagram. Our Instagram is just a neat little tool for you guys to sort of explore what student life here at CCIR is like. We have an ongoing series we call the Student Spotlight. There you can see what sorts of research our students are doing at CCIR. It really is quite incredible what they're able to do here at CCIR after 13, 14 weeks. So with all of that, I'm gonna pause my screen share here and maybe look to some of these questions that are.
Yeah. Oliver, I think there's one at the in the chat.
Yeah.
And I apologize. I believe, hopefully I'm gonna get this one right. It's Ayush was asking what distinguishes CCIR from the free research programs offered at the universities.
Totally. So the free research programs that we mentioned earlier on in our conversation are extremely competitive. I mean, so some of your students will be able to access those, but it's an in-person program. They're going to have limited capacity. I'm not quite sure what the admissions rates are for the two programs that I mentioned, but the MIT one is an applied math program. But you're really taking the cream of the crop of sort of the entire world for some of those programs. They're really looking for sort of the next MIT applied mathematician. Our programs are going to be a little bit more forgiving in terms of admissions. We're still pretty stringent, but that's part of what we're paying for. In addition, it's going to be all the sort of perks that we're building into the program. We have the Research Symposium, we have lab access, we have TA support, we have the publication support built in. Those are sort of bonus features that you're not going to get in sort of just these intensive research programs. Those are really like boot camps, right? So they're extremely prestigious. They make a huge difference on your CV. What we're focused here on CCIR is more helping you develop that project, helping you get that project then showcased potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, listening to your talk, and having seen a bunch of different programs, I would say that's probably the biggest difference is if you go with a program like a CCIR or one where there is a fee associated with it, there's going to be a lot more support and I want to say adaptability to support the students, to make the students making sure the students are getting the experience that they want. With a free program, one, the competition is going to be ridiculous because there just aren't that many of them. And two, your student's going to have to fit into whatever the program offers. And it's like kind of like this is what we do. And almost for I'm probably going to date myself, but it's the back in the day, the old Burger King's advertising thing was, have it your way. Where with a fee-based program, there's going to be a little more flexibility to craft your experience. With a free program, it's like McDonald's. Here's your burger. Next, kind of move along. Is both what I heard and kind of what the way I would make the distinction. Hey guys, if you would do me a favor, I know a bunch of people are throwing stuff into the chat. If you could use the Q&A button, it's just to the the middle right of the screen. The nice thing is if the questions go in there, we don't lose them. They sit, because anytime something else gets entered in the chat, questions go jumping up. Um, so in the we have Caitlin asks, what grades do you accept for the research program? And Caitlin, I'm going to make the assumption that you're talking about kind of age range for kids and who can come into it. If not, drop something back in, and I guess we'll get Oliver to talk more about the admissions criteria.
Totally. So technically, the Future Scholar program is billed as a high school program. The one-on-one we bill as a high school as well as undergraduate program. So some people will actually use that program to develop their writing sample, for instance, for graduate school applications. With the Future Scholar, we actually don't have a lower age limit. And that's because once in a while we get a Wunderkind. So we got one in applied maths last semester who was like 12 years old and just hanging out with the big kids and putting them all to shame. So that's one reason we don't do that. But what we typically like to see is some level of exposure to college level courses or the equivalent. So if your 8th grader is sort of doing AP Calc on their own time, that's sort of the profile of 8th grader we're looking for. But typically what our average incoming age is going to be roughly 16. So we're looking at the final 3 years of high school typically. And I will say that the best times in our experience for doing this is going to be sort of summer after sophomore year. We also have school year programs as well, but summer after sophomore year or summer after junior year. Yeah, the junior year is going to have a little bit more time pressure when it comes to showcasing. So by the time you're done with the program, you'll have a pretty tight timeline when it comes to maybe submitting to conferences, but you can, but that's also feasible.
All right. So I think there's a couple here in the chat I was looking at. Kate asked one about eligibility and enrolled in high school. I think Oliver just touched on it. You ideally, it really, a lot can depend upon the kid but typically we're talking rising junior, so sophomores going into junior year, juniors going into senior year, and there's even some program out there for seniors going into college.
Totally.
Kate also asked this question about for a student who's interested in everything they come across.
Yeah.
How do you recommend you guide your students to identify area of focus for the time being?
Yeah, that's a great question. Those sorts of students, I would push towards the Future Scholar program. So in fact, one of the high school counselors I spoke to recently told me that she actually uses our Future Scholar catalog just because we have 112 different cool courses, right? She'll use that catalog to sort of expand the students' imaginations of like what could be possible when it comes to academic interests. I mean, some of these students just have never heard of computational astrophysics or of biomimetic engineering, and there's cool subjects. So with the Future Scholar program, when you apply, you can pick 5 courses. And for a student like that, part of the experience is just going to be exploring this new field. And if they're interested in everything, that's actually a great thing. It means that they can put biomimetic engineering, astrophysics, geometry of curves, 1, 2, 3, third choice, and just see what they land in and how that ends up shaping the rest of their academic interests. So explore the brochure, I would say, is one thing that you can definitely do.
And this is the point in why I thought it was cool and kind of timely on how you could use, like how students could use their summer to prepare for next Science Olympiad season. Because so students are already displaying an interest in topic areas through their events. And I would say one thing to think about is maybe use their events and the event topics as another way to help guide and focus them. Because I mean, you can see it with a lot of our events. And I'm going to talk about, I'll use Dynamic Planet this year as an example. Like some of the glaciology content that's in the Dynamic Planet event, especially for the high schoolers, right, isn't the kind of thing you typically find in an earth science class, right? And you're not going to, and even, it's not even necessarily going to be in um, a book or a resource they might find in the school library. But if they're really into that, or um, that's a passion, they could do, like they could do a research project on it. They could do the Future Scholars Academy and do classes associated with it. And you talked about one in epidemiology, Oliver, that like it would like if your kid's in disease detectives, I think they'd love the particular class that you mentioned.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally. I mean, this is just my perspective, but I think the courses are so cool. They're just so crazy interesting. So I think for a student who's interested in everything, looking at that brochure will just get them more excited.
yeah. Um, so then looking at it, Neha is asking about the recording. I will make sure you get a copy of the recording. You can then share this with your students. We're also going to get it up on Science Olympiad TV, so they can go back and go there, and if they want to sit down and watch it with their parents, or they want to share it with somebody, it'll be there. Jay asks, are all CCIR sessions online, or are there opportunities to be in person?
Yeah, so we have some in-person components, right? So the lab, the symposium, but the primary driver for the program is also flexibility. We do run everything online.
Then Jeremy asked, do you have all right, so specific dates yet for spring and summer one-on-one research?
Yeah, so one-on-one is totally, it's a rolling program throughout the year, so you can apply whenever and start whenever. So there's no, so it's also one-on-one, so you can schedule it real easy. The idea here is you can do those 14 sessions over 10 weeks, 20 weeks, 14 weeks. You can speed it up, slow it down, skip 2 weeks for AP. The whole sort of goal of the one-on-one program is to be hyper flexible.
All right, so Jeremy, there isn't really specific dates. It's whenever you're ready to apply and get going. That's kind of when your opportunity starts. All right. Neha asks, how many students get selected for particular programs? About what's the kind of student to researcher ratio?
Yeah, so the group course is 5 students for 1 faculty member and 1 TA. You meet once with your faculty and once with your TA every week. So it's like 1 to 2 basically, and then the other program's 1 to 1.
Okay. Jennifer asked this question about do you have programs to help developing schools build research into their programs? And one thing that jumped out to me, Jennifer, as I was sitting there thinking about it and listening to Oliver, is very early he talked about the public lectures. And I think having taught in a variety of schools, and I think Oliver even made the point about helping students understand kind of what's possible is a great way to start. So I would definitely encourage you to think about potentially the public lectures as a way of connecting your students to real researchers. Oliver, do you have other suggestions for?
Yeah, so Jennifer, we've definitely like explored with some schools before. We never like ended up implementing these programs, but we've definitely thought about integrating programs into schools before. That's a much deeper conversation than we can probably have here, but you're very much welcome to email me and ask a little bit more about that. We've had two schools sort of be interested in potentially collaborating with us. Both of them didn't quite come to fruition ultimately, but yeah.
right. And then here's a question here about, so we have a middle school student that's going to move into high school next year. So it's a rising freshman,
Yeah.
or yeah, right. And thinking about a research program. So ideally, if listening to what you had said, I would say it's probably future, if anything, maybe future scholars,
Yeah.
but it's the students really going to want to have experience with kind of high level coursework, right? And really been pushing themselves and doing stuff beyond the school. Otherwise, they may want to wait at least a year to kind of get some high school under their belt.
Totally. I would say that. And the one thing maybe to say is I will say that, you know, as a humanities person, it chagrins me a little to say this, but the humanities and social sciences are a little less demanding in terms of the admissions criteria. So if you're doing applied mathematics, we need you to have, you know, done pre-calc or something. So that's one thing to consider there.
Yeah. All right. All right. And then last, can you share like what's the typical cost for a program and how often then do they meet with their mentors?
Totally. So let me pull this up here very quickly. Just so I can show you guys. 1 second. Caitlin, on our website, I'll maybe worth typing our website for you right here. But right here on cambridgeresearch.org. Here, let me show you guys quickly the tuition information here. Sorry, I don't know why the are you able to?
There we go.
There we go.
Your screen is back. There we are.
Yeah. So we have 2 programs. As you might imagine, the one-on-one is substantially more expensive than the Future Scholar. The Future Scholar has a pre-scholarship tuition of $3,900. The merit-based scholarship can cover upwards of 10 to 15% of your tuition. We also have the Science Olympiad scholarship that you guys might be able to be eligible for. We do offer need-aware financial aid for the Future Scholar program. So what we do there is we reserve a relatively small number of large full ride scholarships for our students. So every session of the Future Scholar, we're going to have roughly 3 to 5% of the student population being sort of on these large scholarships. So we do have financial aid opportunities for the Future Scholar program. The one-on-one is $6,500 with a merit-based scholarship that can cover up to 10 to 15%. That one we don't offer financial aid for, so that's something to keep in mind there. We do also have installation plan options for our students, 6 months at no interest and additional fees, or 36 months with variable interest, basically depending on your credit score. So yeah, so thought I'd just show you guys that a little bit clearer to see.
Yeah. All right. Let me see. I want to, since I think we got through the questions, I'm going to try and close with this last slide, and hopefully there we go. So just to kind of wrap us up and kind of close, it's a great time to prepare for next year. Science Olympiad is going to offer coaching workshops for our adults. There is a ton of student programming out there. You heard from Oliver about the cool things through CCIR. We kind of talked about this already, but you know, align what you're doing with what you're interested in. So for a coach, if your big worry and the big struggle is hands-on, I'd encourage you to come think about our build clinic. If you're just trying to get ideas and understand events better, virtual boot camp. The other thing too is it doesn't have to be just us. You know, AP does great teacher institute. So the advanced placement program here in the States does great teacher institutes that you can go and learn content and activities and things that you can even take back and maybe use at your school or help advance your career by moving into teaching more advanced classes. As Oliver just talked about, there's funding and support are available. So the stuff that does have costs, that's true. I mean, there are costs, but truth is there are monies and support out there for you. In particular, for the ones we've been talking about, we'll make sure that all the information is sent out to the group. We're also going to post it on the Science Olympiad webpage. It'll be under kind of quick links, so down towards the bottom right of our home screen. But we'll make sure the students get the information because they're on a little bit tighter deadline if they're interested in early application of March 1st or regular application of March 15th. And then coaches, I will promise you guys will get the stuff by the end of the day on March 3rd. If you're interested in trying to apply for the $450 grant from CCIR. The other thing, coaches, I would encourage you to look at is our Coaching Excellence Awards will also be going out. So the Science Olympiad also offers support to coaches to attend workshops. One slight difference is the Coaching Excellence Awards. One of the requirements is you are a classroom teacher, where with the CCIR grants, those are classroom teachers and parents are equally eligible for those. So I hope that helped. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. And we will get you all the materials later this week. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a good night and good luck with the rest of your season.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver.